Hello, this is James Hudnall and another chapter of Creative Secrets. This one is about the object of desire. Let's look at how desire motivates characters. Every living thing on this planet is born till it dies, is motivated by desire. This is also true and should be true of every character in your story. Every character in your story has motivations, and their motivation is based on what they want. Your main characters are driven by what they want, and the story revolves around that. The object of desire is the thing that your main characters seek, and your antagonist or villain is trying to block him or her from obtaining that object. So starting out, you need to know what your character wants, your main character. That is a primary focus of the story. But there's also a second part to this. What is their unconscious desire? Because everyone has unconscious desires, and you round out the character and make them more believable if they have an underlying unconscious desire that they don't know. When you have those two things working on a character, it gives them a dimension. If they're just like single-minded, it's not as interesting. There's a third component that you also need to think about, and that is, what is it about their desire that gives them doubts about themselves or about what they're trying to do? If it's a doubt about their conscious desire, it tells us something about them. And it should tell us something about them. In other words, what is it that they have insecurities about and why? Because again, that gives you a dimension to that character. If they didn't have it, they would be lacking that dimension. You have to look at ways of making your character more fleshed out and human. The goal of creating a character is not to just make them interesting, but they also have to feel like real people. One thing you don't want is for a character to feel like a character in a story, even if that's what they are. You can think back on stories that you've really liked and characters that you really like, and you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why do you like that character so much? Is it because they remind you of yourself, or they remind you of what you would like to be? Those characters are reflecting on conscious and unconscious desires that maybe you can relate to. And that's what a writer did, is they created something, a character that's believable and fleshed out, and that you can feel they're like a real person that you wish you could know or you wish you could hang out with. That's what you call good writing, and that's what you need to develop, that skill. Another thing you need to consider is the difference between desire and need. Does your character need the thing they desire, or do they just want it? That plays a role in how important it is. Those are things to consider also. But you also want to think about this. Is the desire symbolic? In other words, can it be used to buttress your theme? A desire can be used thematically as well as just being something to flesh out your character. Everything in the story can be used to help another element of the story. So that's something you want to think about. And finally, the question is the object tangible or intangible? Is it physical or not? Example, a physical thing would be something like a diamond or a big suitcase full of money or some physical thing like that. An intangible thing is something like love. Point is that an intangible thing is a feeling, and a physical thing, which is material. So you have to consider if that object is one of those things. And that relates to whether it's conscious or unconscious, how it plays within the theme that you're working with, or if it does or not. But considering what kind of object of desire it is also important. So it's something to think about. When you have a conscious and unconscious desire, usually the unconscious desire is the true goal of the character, and they don't realize it until the climax. Then at that point, there's a realization that occurs, and the character kind of sees the light, so to speak, and that is a powerful thing when it's done. So unconscious desire can be a very effective tool for a lot of reasons. Going back to the thematic possibilities and other things, you can really use it, and especially it makes the character's arc much more profound than if they just chasing after an object and they get it. An unconscious desire and the realization of that is a more personal achievement than just obtaining some item. So that's why you see a lot of stories where the hero is chasing after some MacGuffin and they get it and it feels hollow. There should be some kind of emotional catharsis that happens, and that's why it's great to use the unconscious and the conscious desire, and you have them cross in importance, so that at the end, the unconscious desire turns out to be the real thing that the hero needed, and the physical desire may or may not be found, but there's a satisfaction that's achieved, hopefully, at the end by a realization that comes through with the unconscious desire. Or it could be the opposite. It depends on how you want to play it, but you have to consider that the unconscious desire is primarily the main goal, and when you cross the stream, so to speak, there's a powerful reaction. So that's it for this episode. Next episode we'll talk about backstory. Please check out the links below in the description, and please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, and click the notification bell so you'll be notified. Please check out Agenda, my new comic. We're in the last 4 days and we could really use your help to close the gap. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.